So today, for our web programming, we will talk about more about the React. Okay, so mainly about the use effect or like use state. If some of you like already tried to change the counter, like increment, decrement, so we'll go through that. Maybe some of you already like try to touch it, then you have some idea. And we mainly have two parts. Let's move on, talk about that. And also including the event. So later I can post a sample, but that one like really have poor CSS. So if you want, you can change it, but only for trying to get the data like from the API server. Okay, so that means JSON, and then what those like the hooks. So mainly the three terms. So we will know what's the stage management, because compared to other just like regular HTML, the React, we say the component based. So we do have the stage management and use the stage. And then how can we handle the user input? And let's say if we click on the button, okay, so we will have some event, right? Okay, click on button, so we sending requests or somehow change content. So how can we detect those events? And also kind of like conditional rendering. Okay, let's say if the user not yet logged in, maybe you are only showing part of the content, but after user log in, maybe you show certain like user information, okay, maybe some like history or some buttons. So how can you render by those like condition? Also, how can we build some interactive like UI components? We can know. When we talk about state, so it represents the data like change over the time. Okay. The most common way, actually, we have two ways to implement the variable. So okay, so you will see the use state is like the first variable is the variable itself. Second one coming is the action, the function. So just like similar to when you learn in JavaScript for the class, right? When we building the class, so we do have the variable, and then because we want to protect the variable, so we always create a function like get function, update function, so to retrieve the content. So it's a pretty similar idea. Okay, and we are manage within that component. Okay, we do have some like global variables, like if I want to as I said, later you know, okay, or you can, let's say, pretty common example is like path, right, 3.1415161. So if we do have some constant variable, like how can we import it? Actually, we do have another way, or like we do have a global variable. Okay, let's say I want to save the user ID, right? So I don't want to use it within one component, but I want to get it from different component. How can we do that? Later we can talk about that. From the example, so for today, I would like you to try, like maybe you can work on some certain form, and we can see the counter will be everyone, you can see it. And then form, let's say, later I will give you one is the profile, I think the like profile login page. Okay, how can we input email or phone number, okay, or username, password? Okay, so all these. So how can we manage all this stage? Another one is called the use state hook. Okay, so this hook, if you remember, we need to import it. The first step, if you look at the sample, if you create your project, so you will see kind of like on the top, like first line, so you see import, right? Use state. So it's from the library React. So this one is that belongs to React library. And when we try to need to assign a value, let's say we have a constant. Constant is if you remember, I talked about the variable. We do have like the var, right? Var is the variable for JavaScript. Okay, and then for the no, and right now they supporting let and const. Okay, so right now I didn't talk about that, but you can guess. So if I talk about let or const, what's the meaning of const? Yes, constant. Okay. Yes, just like it's the same meaning. So most of the time when we declare a variable, it will be constant. Okay, so because maybe some of you confused when you say, okay, try to declare a variable. Let's say I want to create a for loop. Okay, and then if you use const, like if you learn other program language for loop, in I equals to 0, right? So we change it into const. then we cannot change the value. So it causes a problem. So when you're getting why my for loop like always only execute only just one time, then it stop, then maybe it's the problem. Okay. Or like it's a forever loop, like depends how you put the condition. So here's the problem. But you cannot update the value directly. So but here's it's pretty special because it comes with the set state, right? Set update the value. So then we can use the use state. You can give an initial value. Sometimes if you see a bracket comes with 0, okay, that means the initial value is 0. Okay. I think when you look at the counter, the sample, it should be 0. Okay. And then of course you can create your own variable, so you can have a count. So here's a pretty special. That means I say, okay, you're thinking, because we're using count. Okay, put it against what we learned, right? We say const, we never update the value, but here's special because we're using use state. So it helps us kind of like under protection. So we cannot directly update the state. Okay, this variable. But we can use the set state, okay, set count, okay, this function to update the value. So no matter you plus 1, minus 1, we can perform this one. So this one is called the use state hook. And when we try to handle those like events, sometimes when we if you see like we click on the button, right? So like plus 1, minus 1, increment, decrement. So we need to like use some called the like camel case. Okay, giving the event name on click, on change. Okay, so this is a pretty common name we use a lot. Okay, so if you see just like by the meaning, so what's the on click and on change? Pretty straightforward, right? You click on it, okay. Or on change, that means like if we change the values, okay. Let's say we have an input form, okay. If I think you do see sometimes like some website they will check your username if they match or not, right? So when you type it, they say, okay, your username already exists. Okay. So sometimes they didn't really send it. So they always checking when they detect a change on it, so they will send it to the server, API server, and then getting the response. Okay, this name already exists or not, right? I think some of you already see this one. So it's called on change. On click is that you really need to click on the button. Then we will validate, okay, the form content. So it's on. We kind of like passing this function as called the event handler. So you will see the example is called the button on click. So we can declare a function. So this function is like handle click, okay? And because let's say if we have the use state, the counter, okay, so when you click on it, then you can see, okay, we try to update the value, okay? And also, of course, in the depth or in the body, that part, so we will show the state or the counter value, okay, every time you click on it. And of course, we do have some conditional rendering because we talk about that. So for the rendering the element based on the state, so we can use if, okay, or sometimes like ternary operator and condition. Okay, we can put in and. It's pretty common. So first we try to check because we have a use state, right? Let's say we have the state. It's visible. Okay, so it can be true or false. And if it's true, then we will display the following content. Okay, visible. Okay, if it's false, then we won't. Okay, of course, you can do it in another way. What's that another way? If condition render. So we can like if variable and then we can show it. Of course, you can do it, but this one is a more like practical way we're doing it this way. Okay, so then you may be asking, how about or condition? Like if I will show this one, or then I do another one. I think some of you already did it. Just like one line. I think how many know is like is a one line if condition? Question mark. Have you ever seen? Yeah, I think you did it or somebody. Last time I think you did it. Okay, yeah. So later you can try just like one statement, so you can show like if condition, and then I will let you do search like if you're interested. But of course later I will show you. But if you are curious right now, you can search it. Okay, and then you can change it. Okay, and Why we doing in this way? Later, if you're really building a website, actually there's a tricky part. I just telling you, maybe you do have a problem when you're using the if condition, just like using if, okay, if and then else. Sometimes you didn't get the output, okay. They do have certain reason because why we're using stage when we rendering, like we partially. So there's some reason we never able to get the value, the verbal value. So it's like always no. Okay. So once always no, then you never you never able to get your expected output. Okay, so here's the reason. But as a practical, then you will know what's the problem. So here just let you know, it's a good example if you want to giving a if condition. This one is a better way for if let's say the email or somehow let's say the password, if they're incorrect, if you know some there's a statement or alert like red in color showing okay your username or your email doesn't match like this. Okay, so you can use the this if condition. Okay, so let's say it's visible, then you can show your email is incorrect, and then you can give a CSS aside is a red in color. So we can do this. And then once when the user like click on button or like we say detect on change, then we can change the invisibility state back to false. Then it will disappear. So we can do it in this way. Okay. Just like roughly, there was a conditional rendering. So that's what we can do. And so far you will see right here, I think this will see a lot. So constant can, set can. Okay, so we can print out, I think right here, we're passing the parameter right here, it is can, and then click, and we can set the can value +1. Okay, so the can is from the constant value +1, and then we increment. I think some of you already like set the decrement and then or setting the limit, never let it. Built in here, you only update the value. But if you need to giving more condition and then maybe checking, then it's better to passing it to the event handler. So like on change, on click, and then we need to call the function to handle it. So it will be better way. But this one is pretty simple, just +1, then pretty straightforward. And I think some of you already did it. If you have not yet, or I think I don't know how many of you, because I know some of you already like able to create really fancy page, or some maybe still working on it. You can like still work on it. Like how can you set a reset value? Okay, reset button. Okay, or like how can we create a touch button to show a hidden text? So you can like based on what you have right now. So create extra one button. Okay, how can you show and hide the text? Okay, or certain information. That means we try to use the if condition. Okay, conditional rendering. Okay, and we can do in this part. And just quickly, we go to next part. I'll give you the time so you can work on it and then ask question. And another thing is the list and key, and also the use effect. I think last week, I think some students talk about what's a use state and use effect, right? I think ask about that. So like about the content, like refreshing the content, re-rendering, I think. Okay, so that's what we cover here. Pretty sure most of the time when we're building the website using React, actually most of the time we need to handle a list of data. Okay, so also we put it common using the mapping function. Oh, it's a map function. So of course we show you. So what's the role of key in list and then use effect. So it's another hook. Okay, so for the side effect and how can we fetch the data? I will show you the example later. Because I know some of you like already have a really progress already able to do that, then you can work on the fetching data, showing the list. Okay, and when we have a mapping, right now you may be not yet see the list, but if we get the JSON return, or you can create, like let's say you can create a constant variable and then assign a list. Okay, so you can dot map function right here, item, and it's called the arrow function. So this arrow function will reading every element in this list, and we can output it as a list item and passing this item. So this is a variable name, should be match. Okay, match. Then we will output as a list. Of course, you can also add if you try to create multiple choice, okay, so we call the radio, right? Or the chat box. Okay, sometimes like this, maybe we need to get the ID, okay, or sometimes for the list, selecting list, we can like get the value called select. Okay. Of course, like in this moment, you just hear about that, have some idea. Later when we work on more example, like more as a complete form, then you see different type of like input. Okay. And we try to give all these element a unique key. Okay. So we can access it. So how can we giving a key? It would be like this. So we assign the key and give it as an ID. Okay. And question? No. Okay. So it can help us to identify which item like we need to change. So we can access this one. Maybe if you want to see what's the value or this maybe the list being chosen or whatever, like if you want to do, then we can use this key to identify which value. And then you can, let's say if the user click on this list, okay, we do have a ID, right? So we can, based on this ID, maybe let's say it's a portal ID, okay, click on this list, so we can render a portal page. So we can send this request to the API server. API server can select. Some of you are like knowing Slack, we put in where condition or MongoDB. Okay, so you can using the to search it. Okay, search by the ID. Then we can show or render another page. So here's the called the ID keys in React. And then for the use effect hook, so the structure is pretty similar to the function, like component function. So we can call it before that we can use the use effect. If you need to pass the, if you look at the structure, you can see a bracket right here, right? Forward, don't know. So one is like no parameter. So if you need to pass certain parameter, then you can put it right here. Or sometimes because we were using the use stage, right? Use stage, we can use those variable as it directly, then we can do it. Okay. And curve bracket, so everything inside. And of course, later we do have some like dependency, but we are not going to cover in this moment. Just let you know we do have a use effect. So we can fetch the data, subscriptions like timer, or this we can use it. Okay. What's the difference between, can you tell what's differences between use state and use effect? Or like roughly, because I know some of you asked this question and just recall because I know right here you talk about it. So
well, use effect runs every time you update or once or something changes in your site, like you link it to state or like the page loads, right?
Change, yes, but actually we have more hooks actually. We have like command and then, but use effect more likely they will execute when we render that page in the early beginning. Here's a different let's say actually this is an example if I know some of.
I think the use effect tries to get an accomplished effect versus the use state tries to put you in a current state. So quickly it's two separate actions and trying to complete an accomplished state versus do an effect on the state.
Okay, yes, yeah. So they are really compete. Yeah, because at this one they are competing two different things. So don't mix them together. Yeah, use state is more like tracking the variables. Okay, but use effect we are only like working on the side effect like this. Okay, rendering, loading the information or running a function. Most of if you want to like fetching data from a server, okay, so we will use effect. Okay, so when we try to render that page, they're going to execute use effect first. Okay, try to fetch the data. Just remind you because later when you try to fetch your data, if you don't use use effect or like you use a function or somehow to do that, you will realize that why I have my page is empty, or like I can show a list, I can show maybe some CSS, I can see something, maybe I had that, but no content at all. Okay, even I try to refresh it, maybe after you refresh several times, sometimes like when you the data return from the server, then it can show up on the list. Okay, so here's the tricky part, but I would let you like really work on it, then you'll know, okay, like why we need to use effect. They're totally two different kind of things. But once you fetch the data, you need to say, let's say we have the product list. We use a use effect to send a request to a server. Server respond, okay, sending a JSON list, okay, or we sometimes say object list, okay. So we need to save it. Then we can use stage, let's say product list, set product list, right? So set product list, and then we can save it. So that's why they are working together. And for React, we do have a function like fetching data because we're talking. So it's a fetch, okay. You can use this one, but later, actually we have Exos. So this one is another library we need to install, okay. But it's pretty common. It's more practical for developer. In the lab or somehow I will let you to use fetch, but for some of you like able to do that, learn how to, you can look at it, but actually you can use npm install, okay, to install this one, okay. But you need to look at the document later, because I will keep this part covered later for your project. I just mentioned in right now. So if you want to fetch your data, actually it's better for me, okay. So there are two different things, because the fetch function is provided by React, okay, but I feel it's not enough, okay. So for this one, we can implement like helping for loading and also showing some error state, okay. So let's say if I couldn't connect to the server, or I couldn't getting the response, okay, or I get an empty list, okay. So what should we do? So also we can use this fetch function, but in this moment, you can use this link. It works, okay. So you can JSON placeholder, okay. So it can give you a sample. So if you copy this link, later, let me open. Okay, so it do return a JSON list. Later we do have a standard. Okay, so we do have a standard showing. So it's an array list. Okay. Later if you try to mapping like save it, so return, because later I think 2 more weeks later I will show you how to implement API server. So API server is going to return it. Okay, no. We do need to return implement a get method, post method, update, okay. And we get a list, we will return a user ID, title, body, just anything, empty content right here. So after we fetch it, how can we display? So we can use the URL, the list, CS, okay, yeah. If you have no idea, then I will show you the W3 school, like what's that? Yeah, okay. Because actually I will cover this part like kind of later, like after half a semester. Yeah, because I want to like go through the structure, and then we will go back to more like HTML, more details. Also I think I remember in the video I also post like I do cover a little bit, like mention about list, but we do have like order list, unordered list, okay. But later for detail, we'll come back again. So you see when we have a function, okay, we will create a use stage and use effect as a function. And right here, dependency is empty, so we don't do not need to pass anything. Okay, and return, and we will mix with the mapping function. And here's is p paragraph. Okay, so we're giving a key, PID, and then p title. And if some of you able to do that, you can like start from this part. Okay, and we will work on like how to create a list. Okay. If you need some help, I also have a template. Let me can move on. So right here, if you remember, I already create the project. If you want to start with the project, to remember how to create a project. Because I already create, so create, let me open it. In case you forgot. This one. If you forgot, so that's how we can create a project. So nvm create, okay. And here's your app name. So after execute, and we do need to actually run the npm install. But if I already create a project, then I can run that. Okay. I update Windows. I do have a list right here. So you see, I don't have really pretty CSS. So if you need to get this template, later I will share this one, but I will post later. Okay. So because I know some of you may do it really quick, then you can start to work on this part. If you have not yet, you can start with our part one. So part one, try to adding a buttons. Okay. Adding the show message, hit the message, and then giving this like conditional went away. Okay, you can start with this one. If you like able to do that, then you can try to finish the part two. Okay, fetch the list. And also based on the list, let's say if you still waiting, then you can add other effects. But because I have not yet really mentioned about talk about the CSS. Okay, so just leave it ugly. But if you are interested, because I know some of you already work on the CS before, then you can like change it. Okay, so you can work on the CSS to like make it looks more pretty. Okay, or just let you know earlier, because sometimes we can use the bootstrap. Okay, or we can use the because I asked you to search it for the content AOX. npm. Right here, because we talk about the Node.js, right? And also we're using the npm. npm is called the Node Package Manager. Okay, so you may use different type of library. Okay, so when you search it, if you need to use certain library, then you can find it, and they always give you some guideline. Okay, so if you want to install it, we are using the npm. So you can use the npm install. Okay, so if you want to save it to the JSON file, for your future project, I will show you the packet.json. Okay, right here. Okay, so we have the dependency. So the main dependency right here is the React, right? React DOM, and then the rest of is the dev dependency. Is like we are using for development. Okay, so if you change to production, we are no longer to use the following dev development dependency. And if we want to add it to the list, later if you share a project, and then because I am not recommend like upload the whole node modules. But when you execute the npm install, so we're going to install all the required library, right? No package. So most of the time we will, if you create a Git, okay, and then upload maybe your source code and also the packet .json file, and then you can install it. If I want to add this one, so let me stop execution. So I can npm install, say, and then I can save it. So it will ask to you, and then npm spelling. Okay. So right here, after you see, okay, we already add 24 package. So it's like so many package. Even you just import one, it comes with other package together. And I will show you the package.json file right here. And then it comes with the version. So here's the change. Okay, so why not insert one more line? So the advantage of this, like once I save it, here's the command line I use. Okay, so that's save. Okay, that means I will save it to the dependency. Is it good for working as a team or like even for yourself? I'm telling myself, okay, what kind of package we are using, and also it will let you know which version are you using right now. Okay, so once you upload the source code and also your package.json this file, so you can git clone or download it or share to somebody. And then when you execute the npm install, then you can install all this version. Okay, so it's good for production. Later I will let you try like later. One of the requirements that you need to have your git upload to it, and then make sure like I can like download it and then using npm install and execute it. Okay, make sure it is applicable. And anyone have a question or like don't know what you need to do for part 1? No? Okay, if not, then you can try the conditional rendering. If you thinking you're okay to do that, I will show you the source code, but I will upload this source code later, so you can see. I just showing right here, so it's a use effect. It looks pretty tiny. Okay, stage trick. If you're interested, you can come and check it. Okay, but I will upload this one later. But I will want to let you to like based on the information I provide to you, like say only show you part of it. Are you able to add it to your original code and make it work? Okay, so you may try. Later I will make it larger. Okay. And for the rest of time, I'll come to help you. If you have any question, just let me know. So when you're working, just share some extra information to you, how to read the document, okay? Or if you need to use something online, okay, let's say right now I want to fetch, because I'm not really recommend using the fetch function provided by the v8. Okay, so you can look at here, we can import it, okay? You can see right here, actually they have two ways. It giving a, one is called the legacy way. Okay, that means that outdated, using this one is called the constant, and then using the require function. And then later, actually we're using an import function right now. So we can import the library, okay? And depends on the method we're going to use. Okay, if we want to fetch the data, so we using get method. Okay, for the about what is get post, I will cover it in later, like using the happy.js, talk about the API server. And just let you know, okay, if I want, I just need to pass the URL, the link, and then we have the then function. That means like how can we handle it? Okay, in case if we can get the response successfully. Okay, so maybe right here just doing console log. You may use console log a lot. Okay, So here's called a console.log. Then we can print out on the screen. If you want to check, let's say the user, you have an input form. Okay, the user input something. If you want to see what's the input, so we can use the console.log so it can show on the console. Okay, or sometimes if you want to see, you can use called alert, like pop out, to helping you to do debugging. Okay, but remember to remove it later. And if we do have some error, so we will see we passing the error. So if we can catch it, so how can we handle those error? Okay, sometimes we will giving a message, right? So okay, maybe connection fail, or maybe depends on what kind of error. Sometimes they do have an error code. We are not covering in today, but later we talk about like pretty common. Successful is 200, right? Don't know what's the the status code. Have you heard about it? Don't know what's the status code. 200, or pretty common you will hear maybe 404. No, what's 404? I think you see pretty common. Not found, right? When you see a page like 404, page not found. Okay. But this like kind of like is the stage code. So showing us sometimes I do I would define we do have like some kind of like standard like 200 and then 201, 202 for different kind of meaning. But sometimes I will using like let's say for 400 is error, but I want to let maybe in your team. Okay, let's have a code, standard code. Let's say for 400 is an error, or like I use a 500, 600. Okay, or 601 is for certain meaning, 602 for certain meaning. Then we can have follow up action, or we can show certain message, and we can do it this way. So we can define, or sometimes like let's say finally, sometimes we do a finally like always execute. Okay, so then you can copy from this document and then modify it. Of course, in this moment, slightly more than what you needed, but I know some of you already able to do that. Then you can try to look at the document. And also we use sometimes like when we try to fetch the content, early reminding, because we talk about synchronization, asynchronization. So you see async and await. Okay, waiting for the fetch. Here's the most students I say maybe their problem, because when we fetch data from the server side, okay, it takes times. Okay, but for the execution, for the when we loading all the instruction, okay, line by line, right? So if you are waiting for response, if you don't put a waiting function, then they will go to jump to the next instruction. Okay, that means you will always get no response. So I think that is a common error. Let's say if you didn't wait for response, you say why I try to my server later you see I say I already implement an API server. When I put the link, I can see the return, right? I can get the list. Say yes, I always say receive a list right here, but why I didn't see anything, or my when I try to log it like doing console log, why my the list portal list is always showing null or empty? What's the reason? Because you didn't wait for the server response. Okay. Just let you know earlier. If some have no idea, it doesn't matter, because later we will cover the async and await this part later. If you're able to read the document, then you can try. Okay. And rest of time will be yours. And if you have a question, I can help you. If not yet fixed, then I will come to help you. Let me know.
This, know what this is, all it is an permitted increment, and then you're set. Only thing that I'm trying to do is I'm just trying to see for firsthand, we were talking about it in the last class, that's what we've been talking about for that long time. Is we were talking about different ways to handle the increment and decrement. You don't want your count to be less than -1, technically it could be less than -1. Only test like some if statement options and see how React would refresh this stuff related with it. If you have any questions on the ways, this is something. Yeah, yes.
And later in the lecture part, I will cover the JS, like JavaScript. Okay. It won't be really details, but most of them like I just go through. If you do know some if condition for loop, okay, while loop, you can use them. Okay.
Like I was doing it, the way that you were talking about, not doing the option value. Your count is listening to your set count. Now, times -1, so if it goes to -1, -1 times. Guess that's what you get the right?
Yeah. It counts less than 0. It counts.
That's why we have to subtract that to value, okay, because it gets us to 1 instead of 0. Because I was talking about
You wanted to say 0.
yes, if it goes to this,
We can just subtract.
subtract the matrix.
Then just subtract count. If you subtract number,
Yeah,
or just have to say. That's not, yeah. If count is less than 0, you said the same as well, or something. We could just have a times count as well, because it's gonna be less. Or actually it won't, because it won't turn into.
So as soon as it goes to -1, that's a 1 time. Would be +1, +1 still.
You wanna stay at 0, that's what you're saying.
Okay, it doesn't change, okay, good.
Another thing is have it set to 0 if it's small. Absolutely 0.
Yeah, but remember the question was, would it update? And the answer is it doesn't.
Well, here it doesn't, because it's
While you working, I just share something about the some developer tools. I'm using one is called the Wrap. It's a terminal. I think some of you using Windows. It right now it does supporting the Windows before it only supporting the Mac. So right now is you can download in Linux and Windows. What's the feature? Actually, also integrated with AI, so you can use a command line to like giving instruction. Okay, so you can tell a message, but I think I just update my Mac OS to the new one, 26. Yeah, last night actually. I'm still trying. I think there's some missing something. Okay, and if you're interested, you may try to download this one. And another test editor I'm using, instead of using VS Code, actually using one is called Sublime. Okay, so this I'm using right here. Sometimes I just want to sometimes I don't want to using VS Code to create a whole project. Depends on like yeah. Sometimes like for easy text, I using Sublime. Okay, so you can see open it, or you can open it as a folder working as a like I like to split my screen like left and right. It looks more professional. I don't like pretend like this. Okay, so you can edit the content in this way, app.js, and then execute. So left and right, so testing, and instead of the VS Code. Okay, but depends on you. I share some something I use for myself for development. And one more is like only for Mac user if you're using Mac. So another terminal is called ITER. Okay. Because I don't know how many of you using, if you like the original terminal, because for Windows PowerShell or like CMD really bad, because like Windows, they are not based on Linux, like, so you can do that, but I say it's not convenient for developer. Actually, for engineer, Windows is not really good. So you may try to use web if you want to try another terminal. For item, like for Mac user, if you compare, if let's say I'm using Exit, okay, I can close the terminal. But if I use the Mac terminal, oh, that should. Okay, so if I put Exit, okay, it will stay right here. So here the difference is I don't like. If I really want to quit the screen or like leave, okay, so you see all this terminal, when I put Exit, it will close. But for the Mac default terminal, it will stay over there. So I have to close it by myself. I don't like it. Okay, so that's why. Okay, just personally, like I say as a developer, I think of you will try to install different software. I help you to create better environment for you to once you get used to it, it's really hard to switch. So that's why when I use others' computer, I don't know how to. Yeah, I guess. And let me see. You your quiz. What's going on? Okay. Yeah, change.
Yeah, because I have like a issue.
I don't think
But
it's
yeah,
not
I'm
it's
still
not how you,
hair shop, so
that's not how you,
What's the default?
for random, which is like,
Okay,
yeah, so like everything is like, like.
no, yeah, I don't think you just have.
It's okay. It's not okay, but you.
There's no. It should just. Or, no, okay, so you have to, it's just. Okay, it's because you have to do math, or no, yeah. You want to use a function and. I think.
Just figuring out how to do this
all
part. Yeah, I feel like it's killing it. Adding works. But as soon as it gets below 0,
Oh, it goes below. Is there some kind of infinite? It could be that it's entering.
so it's -1. So the number gets into a -1.
Yeah, it's entering an infinite.
So plus.
So I think when you update a state, it refreshes this page, it's refreshing.
The paper. What's your thoughts on them?
Oh.
Go.
No, okay, you have to have.
Do I have to add just put that one? Add.
Because it's gonna be. Or, oh yeah, you do that. Yeah.
you wanna add, because the absolute value thing. Too.
But let me see my. Yeah, refresh. Oh, yeah, this one. Yeah. Okay. But it enters, I think the reason why it crashed because it enters, where
Yes.
it keeps updating itself.
Yes, yeah.
And just go more and more deep.
I crashed it because remember that this thing that we were talking about, like, do this right here? I accidentally did this, so it's subtracting by itself and it's doubling. So whenever I got to the negative state, it was just crash it, because it's, if it's negative, subtracted by itself when it's negative. Subtract.
And that's,
Yeah, is that for, okay. When you're working for the web programming, maybe nobody really mentioned about this one. I will, good habit, I think I mentioned about using inspect. So it's the console right here. Sometimes if you put the console.log, also we can see the output from here. Okay, if you try to log certain content. Okay, so if you want to show the numbers, okay, you may be but I know some of you just add one extra thing. How can you add the console log to print the value? And then you can check the value every time when you click on it.
I don't
know. You don't. JS, if you look at the example right here, fetch, yes, it's right here. Here, here's the command right console.log. Okay, so you can log your value. So let's say from here.
It's still the same catch try from C++.
Catch try. Yes, we have the try and catch, but we are not covered in this moment. Okay, yeah.
No, I
Yeah.
saw it in there, so I seen before that it was the same, but it's.
Yeah, same idea. Yeah, it's a good habit, like, because we using try is that make sure if we can fetch certain content. If we couldn't, then we will do something else. Yeah. Catch. Yeah.
That's the only.
Yeah.
You gotta catch the error.
Just add it in.
And sometimes if you want to see, like, let's say if you pass the value, right? So if you want to see using console.log function, okay, and then you can say data like this. So you can print the data on console log. Console. So you can find it right here. Yeah, once every time when you click it, or you will see like the infinite loop is keep going. So it's a negative. So you can try to add it.
Another thing, I wonder if I could write something about the scrape for websites and like kind of unscrapable on some something. That's probably what I need to do.
Yeah, sure. And
Another project that I can't do. Wonder if I can. Let's leave it out. I'm gonna go with it.
Yeah. Except I just cheated. I add to a counter. Well, yes. I just open up terminal and then I paste in that piece of code.
the reason that it didn't update on this one is because React.js,
Mhm.
React.js, has something built in that stops it from trying to update it because it's not gonna update.
No, they have a priority like loading the content. Okay, so whenever you're just working on one component, okay, but later when you try to fetch the data, then you know the problem. Okay, because sometimes they do have a priority, like which one will load first and which one will be like load it later. Okay, rendering, I can say rendering later. So you will realize some problems like I already implemented, but you didn't see it. I can say why, like logically it's correct, and maybe syntax, they're all correct, but you didn't see anything. Yeah, maybe when you try to because if you don't use those like debugging tools or checking, you say what happened, then there's a reason, because like sometimes we already without not really refreshing but using refresh, that means we are waiting for the result. That means like for all the statement, right, when we execute the instruction, so actually line by line. So if you do not wait for it, then we will execute next statement.
I'll fix that if they're high enough. So
Yes,
that's
yeah.
not for-
And mainly the use effect actually kind of like doing called the asynchronous. It because it's from the React library, so it kind of like already helps you handle the synchronize. Okay, asynchronize and await this function. So it will help you to wait for the response from the server. And then once they receive a response, then they will start to rendering the content. So if
It
you
could be an issue there.
yeah, if you don't use it, then you will see an issue. But later, because I need to wait you to really work on some
Yeah.
practically, then you will have it. Even I try to remind you like or even I say in this moment, if you didn't really do it, you have no idea what I'm talking about. Okay, so it's better to let you try.
The web design, this class is more for the SQL ability too.
Yeah, SQL is more easier. Like you try, look at the question. Yeah, sometimes they say, "What's the meaning of your definition of your statement?" Yeah, tricky part of the numbers. I'm checking how many. I'm not so sure. I'm not so sure how many of you will stay for the database.
I'll be 2, 3, 4. I'll be here. 5, 6. Daniel and this should be easy. Good every one of my classes. Y'all gonna be here for this?
She's not in database,
You're not. Huh? You're going?
Yeah, I'll be there.
Okay.
But you're welcome to stay, like, no matter, even later, I think, like, after middle of semester, if you not student, but let them know if you have some other programming question or somehow you're welcome to stay, I say, open, you can ask me. If I'm the database, you can still stay here, ask me the programming, it's okay, like, or something else, yeah. Let me, right here is almost done time, let me see who. Okay, so nobody attending it online, so I will stop the recording.
Like this is every time.